The letter arrives. It confirms the news. 100% P&T, permanent and total. That feeling of relief is overwhelming, the weight of constant worry finally lifted. For many veterans, this 100% rating is the finish line, the guarantee of stability after years of fighting. But here is the stark, often unspoken truth that many VA resources avoid discussing. Even after the VA grants you that coveted 100% rating, even after they designate it as permanent, the government still retains the legal authority to take some, or even all of it back. It is a rare occurrence, yes, but it is not a myth. Understanding why and how this can happen is the single most important defense against losing your benefits. You need to know the specific critical tripwires that can initiate a review, trigger a reduction, or in the worst case, lead to a full severance of your compensation. We are not talking about simple administrative errors here. We are talking about specific actions and legal doctrines the VA can invoke that override the P&T status. If you are 100% P&T or striving for it, listen closely. This information is your shield. The first and perhaps most frightening vulnerability lies in the very nature of the VA's legal authority, known as the doctrine of severance. Many veterans believe that once the permanent designation is granted, the case is closed forever. They think the VA cannot request any more exams, cannot challenge their symptoms, and cannot initiate a reduction. This is a comforting myth, but it is legally unsound. The VA operates under Title 38 of the Code of Federal Regulations, and specifically 38 CFR, Section 3.105E, governs the reduction in evaluation. This regulation explicitly states that the VA can propose a reduction in benefits if there is material error or fraud. This means the VA always reserves the right to review the underlying evidence that led to the rating. If, for instance, the VA discovers a significant factual discrepancy in the medical evidence submitted during your claims process, or if new evidence surfaces that contradicts the severity initially established, the P&T status offers only protection, not absolute immunity. The VA must follow strict due process. They must notify you, give you time to respond, and provide a hearing. But the legal mechanism for reduction is always active. It is not about your condition improving. It is about the VA finding a flaw in the foundation of the original grant. They can initiate a review if they receive credible third-party information, perhaps from another federal agency, or even an anonymous tip, suggesting the initial rating was incorrect due to faulty data. This legal latitude is the bedrock upon which all other reduction actions are built. It is the VA's ultimate trump card, rarely played, but always available. The second and arguably most immediate threat to any veteran's compensation, regardless of P&T status, is material misrepresentation or outright fraud. This is not a situation where the VA is merely questioning your symptoms. This is a situation where they are questioning your integrity and the veracity of the information you provided. Fraud, in this context, means knowingly making false statements or concealing critical information with the intent to deceive the VA into granting benefits. This could involve falsifying medical records, exaggerating symptoms beyond recognition, or fabricating military service events that are central to your claim. While the VA's Office of Inspector General, OIG, rarely targets veterans for simple errors, they take allegations of criminal fraud extremely seriously. If the OIG conducts an investigation and finds conclusive proof of deception that directly led to the 100% rating, for example, if a veteran claimed total inability to work but was secretly maintaining full-time employment that requires the very physical capabilities they claim to lack, the consequences are swift and severe. Not only can the VA immediately propose to sever all compensation, but the veteran may also face federal criminal charges, fines, and the obligation to repay all benefits received since the date of the fraudulent act. P&T status does absolutely nothing to shield a veteran from the legal repercussions of intentional dishonesty. The VA assumes good faith in all claims, but when that faith is proven to have been exploited, the entire structure of the benefit collapses instantly. This is why absolute verifiable honesty throughout the claims process and beyond is non-negotiable. A third, often overlooked area where the VA takes back money involves mandatory reporting requirements, particularly surrounding dependency and indemnity, compensation DIC, or specific aid and attendance benefits. While this doesn't usually reduce the rating, it certainly reduces the monthly payment, which feels exactly like a reduction. Veterans receiving compensation for dependents, spouses, minor children, or dependent parents must meticulously report changes in their dependency status. If a dependent child reaches the age of 18 or 23 if attending school, if a dependent spouse divorces the veteran, or if a dependent parent passes away, the veteran's compensation rate must be adjusted. The critical mistake many veterans make is failing to report these changes promptly. The VA will eventually discover the change, often through cross-referencing Social Security or IRS data. When they do, they initiate an overpayment collection. The VA calculates the exact amount of money paid since the date the dependent status changed and demands that money back. This can result in staggering debt, which the VA recoups by deducting it from future monthly compensation payments, sometimes for years. Even if you are 100% P&T, the VA will take back every single penny of overpayment resulting from unreported dependency changes. The P&T status is about your disability. It offers no protection against financial adjustments due to administrative errors or failure to comply with reporting laws. The fourth major vulnerability arises when a veteran's 100% rating is built on a combination of conditions, not all of which are static or permanent. This is a subtle but vital distinction. When the VA grants P&T, they are typically designating the overall disability picture as static, meaning they do not anticipate future improvement sufficient to warrant a reduction. However, if the 100% rating is achieved through pyramiding, combining ratings for multiple service-connected conditions, say 70% for PTSD, 50% for a knee injury, and 20% for tinnitus, and the VA did not designate the 70% PTSD rating as static, that specific condition remains technically subject to future examination. Imagine the veteran's 100% P&T letter is based on the assumption that the 70% condition will not improve. If 5 years later, the veteran enthusiastically reports significant documented improvement in that specific non-static condition, perhaps they found a revolutionary treatment, or they are now fully employed and stable, the VA has the right to initiate a review of that single condition. If the review finds the condition has improved to a degree that reduces its rating, iryoji, from 70% down to 50%, and that reduction drops the overall combined rating below 100%, the veteran loses the 100% P&T status. The key takeaway here is to meticulously review the rating decision letter. Which specific conditions were designated as static and which were merely factored into the overall 100% calculation. If a condition is non-static, even if you are 100% overall, any significant documented improvement in that specific ailment can be the crack in the foundation the VA needs to trigger a review. A fifth area of concern, which often blindsides veterans, relates to the concept of unemployability, TDIU, being the mechanism used to reach the 100% paid compensation level. Although 100% P&T veterans are often rated based purely on scheduled criteria, some veterans receive 100% payment because they were deemed totally disabled based on individual unemployability, TDIU, and then later granted the permanent status. While TDIU is typically protected from routine re-examination once granted P&T, the status is fundamentally tied to the veteran's inability to maintain substantially gainful employment. If a veteran granted 100% P&T based on TDIU suddenly and successfully returns to full-time, substantially gainful employment for an extended period, the VA has the right to review the unemployability finding. Substantially gainful employment generally means earning above the federal poverty threshold. While the VA is often supportive of veterans who attempt to work, if the employment is sustained and clearly demonstrates an ability to function that contradicts the initial finding of unemployability, the VA can propose to reduce the compensation level from 100% down to the scheduler rating, e.g. 70% or 80%. It is crucial for veterans who achieved 100% via TDIU to understand that the P&T designation protects them from being badgered with annual paperwork, but it does not protect them if they demonstrate a clear, sustained, and successful return to the workforce that fundamentally invalidates the premise of their TDIU grant. This is why consulting with a VSO or legal representative before accepting any long-term, high-earning employment while rated 100% based on TDIU is essential. The sixth and most severe administrative risk is the discovery of a clear and unmistakable error, or CUE. This doctrine is exceptionally powerful and rare, acting as a retroactive hammer the VA can use to correct a mistake that occurred when the rating was originally granted. A CUE is not simply a disagreement with the medical evidence or a difference of opinion. It is a serious administrative blunder where the VA failed to follow its own regulations or misinterpreted a clear factual record at the time of the decision. For example, if the VA granted 100% P&T based on a condition that was later proven not to be service-connected at all, or if they applied an outdated or incorrect law to the facts presented, that original decision is voidable. If a CUE is discovered, the VA can reopen the case, correct the error, and potentially reduce the rating even if decades have passed. Crucially, if the VA finds a CUE that reduces your rating, they can also pursue recoupment of all overpaid benefits dating back to the date of the original error. This is the most profound retroactive reduction mechanism available to the VA. While veterans can also use CUE to argue for an increase in their rating, the VA's ability to use it to reduce a rating is a terrifying possibility, underscoring the necessity of ensuring every piece of evidence used in the initial claim was legally sound and factually correct. The seventh scenario, where the VA effectively takes back benefits, involves the veteran's interaction with the criminal justice system, specifically long-term incarceration. VA compensation is not immune to the consequences of felony convictions leading to imprisonment. Under 38 U.S.C. Section 5313, if a veteran is convicted of a felony and is confined in a federal, state, or local penal institution for more than 60 days, the VA is legally required to reduce the veteran's compensation. If the veteran's rating is 20% or higher, the compensation is reduced to the 10% rate. If the rating is 10%, the payment ceases entirely. While the veteran's rating itself remains 100% P&T, the underlying disability is still recognized. The payment is dramatically reduced to a minimal, non-compensable rate during the period of incarceration. Furthermore, if the veteran has dependents, the VA will reallocate the dependent portion of the compensation directly to those dependents during the period of confinement, meaning the money is diverted away from the veteran entirely. The VA takes back the financial benefit associated with the 100% rating for the duration of the confinement. Once released, the veteran must notify the VA, and the full compensation rate will be reinstated, but the money lost during incarceration is not recoverable. This is a critical legal reality that supersedes the protections of the P&T status. Finally, we must address the issue of medical tourism, or treatment received outside of the VA system that is used to claim benefits. While seeking private care is a veteran's right, if a veteran is receiving 100% compensation based on the severity of a condition and they undergo highly effective, non-VA treatment that significantly mitigates or cures that condition, the VA can initiate a review. This is especially true if the veteran is seeking payment for the treatment via the VA system or if the treatment is reported to the VA through official channels. While P and T status usually means the VA will not look for improvement, they are required to act on positive evidence of sustained recovery. For example, if a veteran is rated 100% for a psychiatric condition and then undergoes a groundbreaking, successful therapeutic regimen at a private facility, and the treating physician submits a detailed report noting the veteran is now asymptomatic and functioning normally, the VA cannot ignore that evidence. If the evidence is substantial and sustained, the VA can propose a reduction, arguing that the underlying facts supporting the 100% rating no longer exist. This is not meant to discourage treatment, but rather to caution veterans that if they achieve a genuinely miraculous recovery from the condition that dictates their high rating, the VA may eventually act on that documented improvement, overriding the permanent designation based on the factual change in the veteran's health status. The 100% P and T rating is a lifeline, hard-won, and deeply deserved. But it is not a magical force field against administrative scrutiny or legal consequences. The primary takeaway from these potential pitfalls must be this: the permanence of your rating relies less on the word permanent and more on the integrity of the initial claim and your continued compliance with reporting requirements. Protect your rating by maintaining meticulous records, reporting dependency changes instantly, and ensuring that every statement you make to the VA is accurate and verifiable. Never give the VA's Office of Inspector General or the CUE doctrine a reason to look backward at your original claim. Understand that the VA can still legally take back money through overpayment recoupment, reduce payments due to incarceration, and initiate a reduction based on fraud or material error. Stay informed, stay compliant, and treat your P and T status not as the end of the journey, but as the foundation of your future stability, a foundation that requires continuous, careful maintenance. Your vigilance is the truest guarantee of the longevity of your benefits.